Okay, let's see how we go. Yeah, go for it.
Percent of startups fail. And the top three reasons for that are one, market fit, two, running out of money, and three, not having the right people. So I guess that couldn't be anything as important as making sure you've got the right people, because with that, it means then you can probably find ways to get the product right, get the market fit right, and find the money. And that's why we're here today. It was meant to be with three brilliant panelists who've been there and done it in terms of finding people. But unfortunately, I think I might have messed up the call today. So instead of setting it as a meeting, I thought I'd set it as a as a town hall, which totally messes up everything basically. So with that in mind, we are going to go through some introductions. Then we will open it for some do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage talent. And then we'll take some questions. If I can make it so that the people that are live on the call can ask questions, that would be good. If not, then we might just have to see if we can get some of the questions that were sent in. And as you probably all know, I'm not the biggest fan of those. But let's see if you can type in the chat, maybe for the others here. See if you can type in the chat, and maybe that might work. Nevertheless, my name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London, working with startups normally right after they get investment, and I embed within their teams, helping them normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators, and help some angels and family offices with their due diligence and their assessment. About 290,000 people join us in these 4.5, almost 5 years. And none of that would have happened without people like Louise and her fellow panelists. So Louise, take it away, please.
Hello, sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Hi, everybody. My name is Lou Matthews, and I own The Culture Craft. We're a people and culture agency who partner with startups who are scaling up to about Series C. And we apply product principles, work in fixed fee, fixed scope sprints to engineer your people and culture effectively as your operating system, how people get work done. So yeah, we've supported a lot like you, Anton, after generally some investment or where exit is on the horizon, to help people really maximize not just what they get from their people, but actually how their people get work. So we say when culture works, everybody wins. Investors, founders get to talk about revenue goals and money, which is also often a point of contention. And your people get great opportunities to progress, to build the right skills and develop into future roles.
Thank you very much, Lou. I'm trying in the background to try and change things so that the other two panelists can join us. So in the meantime, I'm sure you've seen quite a few things out there in terms of what founders do wrong and what they do right. What are some of those do's and don'ts that are important to you, Louise?
I think in terms of do's, I would say making the entire role or deal, I would call it, maybe more than a role, explicit. So yeah, going just beyond what the role is, the expectations of it, the skills and experience required within it, actually detailing and writing down the level of autonomy that comes with that role, the expectation that people can work independently, for example, decision-making rights that person holds, but also where decisions get made elsewhere in the organization, what the success measures are. We use the definition of done in a people and culture context. So, not just the deliverable itself or the output, but actually what will it be doing for you, for the team? How will it feel? Can it be used immediately at the end of a given period? So being very clear on what that looks like operationally. And I think most importantly, what won't be supported. So, I think a lot of thought and effort can go into onboarding, and rightly so. It's an incredibly important part of the employee life cycle and the experience that your new starters have. And it does weigh into attrition levels. But I think sometimes that comes with the shadow of maybe of over engineering onboarding and potentially leaving new starters with an expectation that their time in a startup will be very structured and supported, but actually, being clear from the outset that generally a startup is not a training environment. There will be a lot of learnings. I think we all know that. But it's not the structured training that somebody may be used to. It's a delivery environment first, and training will be provided as and when. But I think that gets people into the right mindset and with the right expectations, and particularly for founders or founder-led organizations, where it's potentially going to be you who's actually drawn into that onboarding experience and supporting them. In terms of a don't, look, I'll probably just say a little bit of the same, but the opposite. Again, is that overly structuring onboarding. But beyond that, if it doesn't exist elsewhere, structure and very explicit SOPs and ways of working aren't written down, which they tend not to be. They tend to be being built as and when. You're creating a dependency for people. And, unfortunately, as a leader, where that happens, the accountability for that sits with you. And I have experienced it myself where, with the best of intents and because I care and I want people to succeed, I've made that mistake. I've created a dependency that I've really struggled to be able to move away from. But worse than that, I've left people really quite surprised when I pulled away. And that's never a nice feeling and always something to be avoided when it comes to employing people. So yeah, I think, look, in summary, being honest with people about the realities of it from the outset and writing that down and getting as detailed as you possibly can so that everybody knows what that looks like, feels like, and there's no subjectivity with it.
That is pure gold. Thank you very much for that, Louise. Right here, I guess a quick reset of the conversation for those of you that have just tuned in, either here on our Microsoft Teams call, which unfortunately I messed up and set it as a town hall this time. Hasn't happened before, but there's a first time for everything. For those of you that are on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please bear in mind that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do want to ask us anything, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams and just put it in the Q&A there. We are here for Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 178th session. We're taking any questions you may have on your talent journey, whether you want to know how and where to find and hire and keep and empower the right people, maybe how to interview them, how to test them, where to look for certain people, how much to pay them, and all that jazz. We're going to be here now for the next 43 minutes. I advise is not to leave it for last second to ask questions because we will run out of time. Now, if your questions today are not on talent, please save them on the other conversations that we have, or for the other conversations rather. Mondays, as you can see today, it's talent. Tuesdays is product and tech. Wednesdays is growth. Thursdays fundraising. Second Friday of each month is UK startup law. And third Friday of each month is UK startup finances. That all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. That all available on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, the website, it's startuptoscaleup.club. Once you go there, find the session you'd like to join, click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and there you will be able to then get the link. And you can do the same for today. For those of you on the live streams, again, if you want to actually ask the question live, simply go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Click on today's session, scroll down a little bit, click on today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 178. Once you click join, it's a couple of seconds registration on Luma, and through that, you'll be able to join us here. We'll now go on to some questions that some of you, quite a few of you actually, and we are thankful, although it makes for much better conversation if you are here live. But quite a few of you sent questions during the break, especially around Christmas, basically. So I'm just going to post the question in the chat, Louise, for you to refer to, but I'm also going to read it out loud for the live stream. So this is, okay, so they're bootstrapped, based in Leeds. It's a B2B marketplace for sustainable building materials. And he says he's got a construction background. Okay, so the issue is building a tech team from scratch, and the question is quite a common one that we get. How do I go about hiring a tech team from scratch when I have zero tech background? This is quite an interesting one. It would be nice to have him here so we could ask some back and forths, but on such situations, on such occasions, what would you do, Louise?
I would probably recommend going contractor first to help you even identify what it is that you need and be clear and sure on what you need. This is one of those chicken and egg situations. It's not. It's often the case in a tech startup. You're going to want to build a tech team pretty quickly. I would make actually hiring and developing your longer term team and even senior person a priority for that person and part of the scope of the role that they'll do for you, or the engagement. And you can make the engagement even just about that, right? Just to help you understand what it is you need and where you need it. I think hiring where you don't have that experience yourself comes with too many risks for that to be an employment relationship and a permanent one up front. What I can talk to in terms of how to manage that beyond the contractor. So if you have a contractor in, they can be doing some of the building for you, but also helping you to actually get your permanent hire in place. One of the biggest risks that I've seen that can come with your first tech hire, and certainly at a senior level, is visibility around things. So when you don't have the subject matter expertise, you've hired in somebody who you're paying probably a lot of money to hold that expertise. What you want to be sure is that they don't also hold your IP in a way that you can't access it, or it doesn't have transparency and visibility around. That creates not just a dependency, but a huge risk in terms of business continuity. And I have seen the very unfortunate end of that that we managed to sort out in the end, but an incredibly risky, sensitive people problem where a CTO did exactly just that, held everything in their head or in systems certainly that nobody else could access. And we reached a problem point with that person, and what happened was that we couldn't do anything initially. We were stuck because without them there was no business. So I think actually having somebody as a contractor, beyond just building your team and making the right hire with the right technical background, coding skills, languages, they can give you that, but also act as an advisor as well as to, when you don't know what you don't know, what expectations should you be setting? That's incredibly difficult. But I think just considering some of the things around, in the first 90 days, what is that definition of done? What do you need to be in place, right? And then you have an advisor, hopefully a trusted advisor at that point via contractor who you can kind of soundboard things off. I think something that you can do is ask around work samples as well. If it's that you will be maybe interviewing yourself, if you don't have scope or you're not interested in the contractor route, you could still engage with contractors on a day rate basis to, help with the interviewing process, even if that's just the case. So there's so many different ways that you can, I suppose, get the reassurance that you need around decision making when you're not the subject matter expert. But yeah, I would avoid building a team too early. I think getting that senior hire in first and doing that with the assurances that you need, and protecting yourself with that transparency through the process, whether that's decision making rights, where information sits, what done means, what it looks like, what it's doing, but somewhere that you can actually see progress. And, in terms of dependency, the benchmark is always, if that person fell off the face of the earth, is there somebody else that could step in and keep things going as is? If you can't answer that question, which when you're not an SME is often the case, you need to find a way to be able to do that and make sure that you have explicit assurance that exists.
Spot on. I definitely agree with you on that. Some of the best roadmaps I've come across and also have worked well for me too is start with getting an advisor. So go look on LinkedIn, look on various other platforms, see startups that are either way ahead of you or that have actually exited that are similar to what you're trying to do. And then look for tech people that worked or still work in that startup. Reach out to them and ask them to just say, this is what I'm building. I'd love to pick your brain initially. And if you see that there's a match and there's chemistry between you two, ask them to join you as advisors. Once they do that, then you can leverage them to find the right people. That's one way. Another way, or a way that you can actually go simultaneously here, is to also go to a reputable recruiter. Now, agencies can be a bit tough because you've got quite high fees, but the idea with agencies, at least, is that it's a no-win, no-fee situation. Whilst if you get somebody like, let's say, myself, you still have to pay whatever daily rate, but you obviously get somebody that is embedded in your team. But the advisor way has done wonders for me and a lot of other startups. And once you've built that, like Louise said, then you can get leverage them to build that team. Start with one, start on a contract, and then another one, and so on until you have what you need. Rightio, we now have 35 minutes to go. Again, if you're on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please bear in mind that unfortunately, we're unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do want to ask us anything, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is to go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 178. You click join. It's a quick registration that gets you a link. It's on Luma. You'll find there the link for today's call. It's audio only, and the reason why we do this audio only is because we want people to be able to join from any platform via any device and wherever they are in the UK. And you could be working from a shared office in Shoreditch, or perhaps walking your dog in Surrey, or cooking lunch in Liverpool, or having lunch in Glasgow, or perhaps changing baby nappers in Bristol. It can be anywhere, and that's the beauty of this call. Again, unfortunately, I messed up today because I set the call as a town hall, which doesn't work well for these kind of calls, so apologies. But I will fix that for the future sessions. Now, we can go on to another question, shall I say, that was sent in to us. So bear with me, let me just find these. I'll post that again on the I'll post it in the chat here, Lou, so that you can see it and refer to it, because this one is quite a long one. And then I read it out loud for the live stream. So where am I? Okay, this is, let's call it question 2 so that we can know what is what. Okay, so I'm a seed stage founder in Edinburgh, building a travel tech platform for remote workers, coming from a traditional travel agency background. To keep costs down in a cash-constrained industry, I currently rely heavily on freelancers for areas like product engineering support, marketing, and customer operations. This gives me flexibility, but I'm starting to worry about lack of continuity, ownership, and long-term accountability as the business grows. So my question is, what practical signals should I be looking for to decide when is the right time to move from freelancers to full-time hires? In particular, how should I think about cash runway, revenue predictability, workload stability, and role criticality, Jesus, okay, when making this decision? And which functions typically make sense to bring in-house first in a seed stage travel tech business? Oh boy, that's quite a mouthful, no. Do you want a minute
Yes.
to go through it, or?
There's a few questions in there, isn't there? Give me 1 minute. I'm trying to just decipher how many questions are in the last part.
That's okay. Mute it so that I can repeat something so that I don't get in your head as well. Once you've done that, then at least I can talk. So, whilst Lou is going through that question, another thing that is important is that we have an amazing community on WhatsApp where you can tune in to speak to other or connect with other founders, or fellow founders rather, shall I say, with investors, operators, and of course, our amazing second to none panelists. I am going to post that link in the chat right now. But you can also join various groups that we have via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. But what I'm going to do is, in the chat, I'm going to post a link to a WhatsApp group that we have specifically for startup talents. And this is simply focusing on startup talent, basically. But you can send questions ahead here. You can discuss topics that we touched on, post Q&A, and of course you can get help during the times that we've been doing this. So between, let's say, Tuesday to next Sunday, when there isn't a talent Q&A, you can go into this and speak to other people. Lou, are you ready?
Yes.
Go for it.
Sorry, I thought I put myself on mute. Okay, so there's a few things here, isn't there? And actually, some of it I think is maybe are good ones to attend some of the other Q&As during the week for around the finance side of things to get more detail. I think for me, immediately what came to mind was client-facing, customer-facing, anything delivery dependent is something that I would consider keeping in-house. Those are roles that require not just the relationships with clients, but actually deep business context to understand the ecosystem that they're actually delivering within. Not ideal to just be picking up relationships, putting them down. Where I work with clients actually now, and models that work very well, are things operationally that you can outsource. So depending on, it's hard without understanding business strategy, but marketing is one that probably sits on the line of in-house or outsourced. It can be an incredibly strategic role. So, for you to determine that, but roles that sit in finance, in HR, those type of operational support roles, I would be saying are ones that could be outsourced. On the, I suppose, the line of what is the work that people are actually doing? I would do a bit of an assessment before you get to the decision making around this on capacity. So, what are people actually doing? Startups naturally bring incredibly creative, innovative, ambitious people. And that also means that potentially work that they're doing goes right outside of the scope of what's actually needed. And I think an assessment and you being certain that there are no real nice to haves happening in terms of work. They're nice to have in that they keep people motivated, but when it comes to thinking of cash runway and revenue and the impact on those things, are there things that people can stop doing that aren't critical to any delivery or any of your growth ambitions? So some of that's going to be really intangible. It's going to require time with your team, but a really good understanding and confidence in how your team are actually spending their time will inform a lot of the decisions around this. I think in terms of your revenue and cash runway, they work hand in hand when it comes to hiring. So when it comes to your cash runway, again, not fully knowing your model, your revenue model, or whether you are revenue generating, but if you have 9 to 12 months cash runway in, then you've got scope to consider full-time hiring. If your revenue is coming in quite steadily, that could maybe be 6 to 9 months cash runway. But also just considering that revenue predictability piece, right? So, do you have a model that actually allows for recurring revenue? If not, what could you offer that allows for that financial stability for you to be able to more easily make these decisions? I think in terms of signs then, looking at your current freelancers, what is the type of work that they're doing? So is it project based? Is it spiky? Are there those ups and downs, or are they picking up the same work? Are they doing the same work every week? For over maybe if you can review the last 2 to 3 months, and is the backlog refilling every time they complete that work? That's a good indicator that actually that's more of an FTE full-time employee problem. And I think that's one I would be considering bringing in-house, because you get the benefit then of probably less cost, but equally that continuity that you're after as well. But if it is spiky, if it's project based, I would keep it freelance. But really, you can tighten up on any sort of outcomes, handoffs, and you can make part of the engagement ownership. There are boundaries around that contractor freelancer relationship, but you can still say that they have to own, a relationship, own a piece of work, and just maybe look at the scope of the engagement that you have with them as well, and how you might be able to broaden that without crossing a line into an employer type relationship. So yeah, I'm just trying to think, was there anything else I would add to it? I think if you're going to bring any in-house, I would prioritize any sort of delivery, product, client-facing type of roles first, then moving on to probably to tech, any engineers that you might have, onto if there's customer services, customer operations, any sort of quality roles. But yeah, where it's sort of business operations, marketing, HR, finance, I would be considering those as sort of lower on the list priority to bring in.
Thank you very much for that, Lou. A few things perhaps from me, which in a way I'll probably be repeating some of the stuff you brought in. But in terms of that, you definitely want to start with the business book in terms of the people that you want in-house, because that's where the relationships are. And also because you've mentioned seed stage a few times and the financial side of things, so I'm assuming at some point you may want to go for investments. If you go for what I would call institutional, so VC and anything around that, they definitely want to have domain ownership in-house. So then eventually you also need to start thinking about having the IT people and the tech team in-house as well. But initially, I totally agree with Lou. Start with the sort of customer-facing people and then take it from there. But it may be a good idea to have at least one tech person in-house who will be managing and taking ownership and accountability of whatever domain and IP you're building. Rightio, we now have, what, 15, 18 minutes to go, or 23 minutes. What am I doing? It's 12:37, yes. So we have 23 minutes to go. We've got time for a few more questions. Those of you that are here, please feel free to put it in the Q&A. If you can't do that, well, no, you should be able to. So put the question in the Q&A. For the rest of you that are on the live streams, unfortunately, we are unable to monitor your questions. But because I messed things up today, I'm going to try and be nice, and feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll kind of keep popping and checking that for messages. If you've got any messages in terms of finding and keeping the right people for your business, and you want Lou to take a stab at whatever your challenges are right now, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, please join us in the other sessions that we will run. It's quite a few we do. On Mondays, it's talent, as you can see. On Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're all available on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, startuptoscaleup.club. And I promise that next time we won't have this issue that we had today. Well, now I've got another question here in the chat, Lou, so that you can refer to it, but I'll read it out loud for people to, the live streams to hear it. So, as the co-founder of a pre-seed legal tech startup in Bristol, where we provide contract management software for small businesses, we're expanding our team to include both full-time developers and outsourced contractors. How can we create an effective talent management framework that balances the needs of both employee groups and ensures consistency in performance expectations and development? That's quite a question. What's your take on this, Liz?
I'm a little bit conflicted with this question, actually, and how it's written, because I think it's clearly understood that there's a difference between your, I'm assuming, full-time developers are employees, and your outsourced contractors. And then there's a priority around ensuring consistency in performance expectations and development. And I guess the difference being with employers and contractors, performance expectations and development, those conversations tend to happen hand in hand, and one tends to inform the other. I think when it comes to contractors, your role is not to inform what you expect in terms of how they develop themselves, but what you can determine is, what skills you need, what you require them to do and be able to bring in terms of talent and their skills and experience. Now, I guess, where this distinction matters is generally when it comes to communication internally, and having some degree of consistency when it comes to information flow. And so there is always a challenge, I suppose, with how much you bring contractors into the fold, into internal operations. I think this speaks to whether it's communication or performance or development conversations. Creating the distinction isn't just a legal obligation, because it is, but actually thinking from an employee's perspective, if there is no difference in terms of how contractors engage with the team, in terms of how involved, how much access they get, how much development opportunity that they're provided, it's worth just considering what that might mean for your employees, or how that might be perceived, right? And a perception, does not mean it is the reality, but you have to remember that that is your employees' potential reality and what they're living and how they're experiencing something. So I would just consider maybe what the differences need to be, obviously from a legal perspective, but actually from a cultural perspective. It doesn't mean you have to treat people differently, but it's more just considering what those boundaries are, why they're needed, and how you're going to manage them. It's really important that people, regardless of worker type or contract type, can communicate, can get work done together, can deliver and work really effectively together. But I think when it comes to talent management framework, employees, very different, and probably the one we're all most familiar with. When it comes to your contractors, in terms of performance expectations, that's generally written down in your engagement letter or your scope of work. If it's not, that's probably where it should be captured in terms of those outcomes, measures, how you will know work is done. And actually, the other thing I would just add that's popped into my head on that one is, if you don't have those things written down when it comes to contractors in terms of performance expectations, consider making those part of your contract with them. So you can start to base payments less on daily rates and more on milestones. And then when it comes to development as well, for me, creating opportunity as an incentive is probably quite different. Communicating development expectations or how people develop themselves, that potentially crosses a line when it comes to contractors into more of an employment relationship. So you've got to be just very careful with that. There is no world that you can just combine employee and contractors and treat them the same when it comes to performance expectations and development. Employees, your contract with them is a mutually beneficial relationship. And so you can hold them to account for keeping themselves, there can be a clause in your contract around training, and there's more of these coming to light, especially with the likes of AI, that it's expected that engineers, developers, tech teams keep themselves up to date with tech trends. With contractors, you don't have the same level of input or expectation that you can set there. So maybe not directly answering how you can do that, but actually it's worth considering legally why you shouldn't do that, and culturally as well, how it could be perceived if everybody was treated the same.
That totally makes sense. And it's easier said than done at the beginning when you haven't got funds in and you haven't got connections to get the right people. But it's always worth finding a way. I think is it simply Docs or Simply Business? There's a few websites out there that you can actually get quite a few templates for various contracts. Now, obviously, it's never 100% because it's not that easy to take a template and then make it work for yourself. So that is in the absence of not being able to afford a lawyer for contracts in any way or being able to afford a HR person. But there is a lot of opportunity out there to take advantage of people that work as fractionals. You could find somebody that comes in literally just for one day. You send them before the stuff that you need. And most fractionals that are used to being fractional, I'm not talking about the ones that work as fractionals because they're looking for another job, but the ones that are used to working as fractionals, they'll have various ammunition in their portfolio that they can then deploy depending on your needs. So it's always worth going to somebody like that, whether you need them for a couple of hours. Most people don't do a couple of hours, but whether you need them for a day or maybe once a week or whatever the need may be, it's definitely worth doing that. And you can also do some of these other companies that I'm talking about that you can, I think it's Simply Docs, I'm not 100% sure, but there's some others similar to that you can go into. And then there's also various associations that are member paid, various small business associations and so on. If they haven't got stuff like this, then they're not worth our salt, but there's a few that do, that is worth looking into. So try not to take everything up on yourself and trying to make it work when you don't need to. Right, Lou, you said you need to go a bit earlier, so we'll go through one more question and then we'll wrap it up because unfortunately, from a technical perspective, I messed it up, and other panelists couldn't join us. And it doesn't look like the people that wanted to ask questions could do that either here. So nevertheless, fintech. Okay, so this is in London. It looks like it's from our friends at Grow London, the London Mayor's scheme, which is run by London and Partners. Fintech for micro investing in developing countries. We're in London, seed stage. It used to be a wealth manager. Problem I'm having is balancing a flat hierarchy with scaling. All of that. Okay. We've maintained a flat hierarchy to foster innovation, but now we're scaling. Currently 14 of us, and people need more structure. How do I introduce management layers without alienating early employees? That's a very good question. What would you do here, Lou?
Yeah, this is a really common one. There's a few things. So I'm going to go practical, and then I think there's the human nature of change, and what that can mean for early stage employees and startups. I think when it comes to structure and at that first point of introducing it, we often make assumptions that has to mean hierarchy, that has to mean direct reports. One of the things that you can do is to just start with roles and ownership, right? So forgetting job titles. In fact, I would be very careful of not overly inflating job titles, but thinking of that ownership, you can introduce what are called directly responsible individuals, right? So thinking of the work streams that you have, whether that's an engineering, product, growth, operations, but just publishing and writing down who owns what decisions. So that will give you structure without any perceived hierarchy from people's perspective. Now, what I would do on top of that is level up on transparency, okay, in particular with communication. So introducing, if you were to go this route of responsible individuals, but also layering in, we're thinking about what the structure needs to be. So you're kind of telling people as well, we're not saying that this is what it's always going to look like, but we understand there's an immediate need to provide some structure so that work can get done more effectively, without friction, without frustration, while we work out the longer term plan for what the structure in the company needs to be. So it sort of leaves people with an understanding that this is dynamic. We are not saying there's never going to be, reporting lines or hierarchy, for want of a better phrase. And it gives you the space that you might need to be able to do that right. I think the other thing with transparency as well is where you're starting to introduce some structure, people can fear sort of mystery decisions, or if they don't know where a decision has come from. And right now it's very easy for everybody to know exactly where it's come from. So in terms of transparency, a really practical thing you could do is, if you don't do it already, just weekly huddles, weekly demos, metrics reviews, something really short and simple. It doesn't need to be over-engineered, but it makes work visible to people, even if that sits outside of what they do or their team. It lets them understand the context in which they're working within, and it creates accountability as well. Any sort of visibility and transparency that will show people that managers are accountable, or responsible individuals are accountable for the work that gets done and the decisions that are taken. I think also thinking about who it is that you might put into a management role is really, really important. So you're going to have people who are more senior, maybe even at an individual contributor level at the moment. That doesn't necessarily mean they are the right people to lead others or to manage others. There is, I've mentioned it on here before, but there's some great training, manager training that you can do. There's a company called Unleashed, and it's really, really, really cost effective. And it's to be honest with you, it's something that I think is just assumed people will be able to do, but excuse me, it helps with new managers around expectations of one-to-ones, having difficult conversations, managing performance. So I would consider, before you put anybody into those roles, of getting them onto something like that. I think it's like £250 or something small for about a 6 or 7 week cohort course. I think on the psychological side of things, when it comes to those early stage employees, there is almost always going to become a point of scale where they feel alienated. So as a founder, I would probably just reflect on how much control do you really have over that? Because it is human nature that when things change, we feel a sense of loss. And so I have, in most startups I've worked with, I tend to come in because there's growth and they're looking for some structure. And there is generally the early stage employees who will audibly say something like, I'm so glad you're here because, you know, this is wrong and that's wrong. And they have this view that I'm going to make everything right and we'll get back to how things used to be. And what you're seeing is grief. That is the early stage employees who probably have the most bonded relationships in the organization, who feel personally and emotionally invested and tied to the business. And that's all a really great thing. But where it goes wrong is when that's not named. And, you know, we as business owners, I can speak to myself, sometimes forget that maybe people aren't as excited about a change or growth as we might see it, because we're way further into it. We've got the ideas in our heads and we see the roadmap ahead. And for individuals, it can land as a loss. So I think, you know, introducing the management layers at the size you're at now, I think is the right thing to do. People should want you to do that as well, so that you're freed up to focus on growth. But I think in terms of it being the solution to not alienating those early employees, I don't think you're going to find it is. But I think what you can do is focus on communication, right? Actually saying, you know, some of this might feel like we're losing some of that small team magic, and that's normal. But, you know, being clear that you're not removing any influence, but it's just, you know, stopping the chaos that's costing you in terms of your speed or agility. And being clear with people too who are experiencing that, or maybe experiencing that, around, you know, what has to change, why it has to change, but what you'll protect as well, right? What are the things that have worked, that have got us here, that we're going to protect and make sure that we leverage for our next phase of growth? That gives people a sense of recognition for the part that they've played, and really helps them get on board as well. So I think there's probably two things. There's the structure. There's also, you know, how do you bring those early stage employees on the next path with you? But that's really a communication thing and a trust thing as well. So yeah, just my view on that question would probably be to consider those things as two separate problems. You absolutely have got to consider those early employees when you implement structure, but actually it's not just about structure, it's about change. And there's going to be lots more of that if you're anticipating growth and scale. So actually, maybe the entry point here is more to do with communication and naming out loud how people might be feeling.
That is brilliant. Here's a few things that I've seen work well and that have worked for me as well. Number one, in terms of setting up a structure, there comes the time that you need to do that, and there's nothing wrong. What I've seen work well is still leave lines of communication open, so that people then don't only have to go through that hierarchy to get things done. And what has worked well for me, for example, in StartUp, is to say to people, look, you can still reach out to the founder or the CEO, but instead of having to go through, you know, the entire hierarchy, but what you have to do is, before you send me an email, is write up to 100 words to explain why, to yourself, why you can't go to somebody else, i.e. your line management, that you have to come to me for this. And often that exercise, when people start doing it, will see that that is not the right thing to do. And actually, often you don't even need to go through the 100 words, but you'll realize that, no, there's no need to do that. That's one. Whilst it can seem to be wasting time, it actually helps, because it also helps people formulate their thoughts in terms of whether this is the right thing that we want to do anyway, let alone who to contact. That's one. And two, in terms of how you go about this structure, it's about responsibility and accountability. So it's not a matter, Lou rightly mentioned, to be careful on titles. Not a matter of titles. It's a matter of who's responsible for what. Simple as that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's just my sort of 2 bits on this. We are at 12:57. Lou, have you got time for some quick parting words for us, or shall I let you go?
Yeah, no, I just thought of something in terms of this question that's probably relevant to just startup life for founders anyway. But I think consulting with your team, giving them context, making sure that there's a shared understanding of decisions that you make, of the path that you're going down, is really, really important in terms of employee engagement, of getting people really excited and wanting to be a part of it. But I think what founders have to remember as well is that does not mean you need agreement. And getting that right, I suppose, habit and respect and boundary in place early will help people be able to move past disagreement, which is going to be lots of, right, a lot quicker. So yeah, give them understanding, give context, but know that doesn't stretch to requiring agreement before you can make the decisions you need to make.
Oh, you've been amazing, Lou. Thank you very much, and thank you for rising to the occasion, because today I definitely.
It's all right. Don't worry, I was on my toes.
I messed up the technical part of it, and oh my lord, I can't believe I've done that. But it is what it is. So we'll have to fix. We'll have to fix all the other stuff that I've set up. But nevertheless, I'm really grateful for your time and rising to the occasion, and most importantly, the amazing advice that you gave to our founders. So
thank you, Anton.
Thank you for that, and we'll see you next time. I'll let you go, but I'll quickly do a quick recap of everything, Anton. And then we'll take it from there. Thanks again, Louise, and have a great year ahead, by the way.
And you, Anton. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Ta-ra. So this was Startup Talent Q&A, our 178th session. Unfortunately, I messed up the technical side of things a little bit, but that wouldn't happen again. Couple of things here, everybody. Number one, we run 6 regular sessions. Mondays, as you saw today, is talent. Tuesdays, product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're all available on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, startuptoscaleup.club. If you want to join any of them, you need to go to our website, pick your preferred session, click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and then there you'll find the link. We also have some amazing groups on WhatsApp. It's a brilliant community of founders, investors, and operators, and of course our panelists too. So please feel free to join that. There's a link to our Startup Talent WhatsApp group here on the chat, but you can also find those groups on our website. So at the top and bottom of the website, you'll be able to see a WhatsApp icon that you can click on. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A, where a team of brilliant panelists will take questions on how you can build your early product or tech, whether that's your product roadmap or perhaps a prototype or MVP and all that jazz, really. So please feel free to join us then. Otherwise, thank you very much again, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.